If you want to be successful in the long run, you have no choice, but you better get on, because making short-term profits is not a necessary precondition for long-term success. History tells us again and again, if you want to run a company that is long-term successful and that builds value over time, environmental, social and governance issues are key, are critical. If you go public listing and you can demonstrate you have a good corporate governance scheme in place, you're environmentally sound and you have a good social relationship, you get a much higher evaluation from the beginning.
Well, talking about social responsibility, you also mentioned environmental issues. One of the most recent stories making headlines around the world is China's pledge to introduce death penalty for those in charge of seriously damaging environmental situation in the country for environmental crimes. How would you assess that?
Well, it so happens that we have a very strong network in China, and we are having a big summit in July just on that subject. I can assure you that the corporate community worldwide, at least those corporate leaders who want to stay in business over time, they're waking up right now on the importance of taking action. Many companies actually are acting ahead of governments in many countries because it affects the bottom line, and it's part of long-term business value creation.
Mr. Kell, do you believe the United Nations could create a framework to enforce corporate compliance with civilized economic, social, environmental rules?
There are hundreds of codes already out there in all issue domains, human rights. The UN has a convention against corruption, environmental frameworks. The issue is always implementation and how to find the incentives to establish the business case. Through the Global Compact, the United Nations pursues the business case approach, arguing that long-term sustainability requires environmental, social and governance stewardship. And this is a novel approach because there's no shortage of conventions or guidelines, codes. The world is full of them, historically, codes of conduct, so many. The issue is always implementation and finding the right incentive structure. The good news is on this side is that the non-traditional financial issues increasingly become material. Also investors are waking up, latest since the financial crisis, that if you ignore what used to be external to a corporation, environmental issues, social issues, or corruption issues, you actually pay a high price for it.
Well, Friday's highlight is clearly President Vladimir Putin's address. The centerpiece of the forum is scheduled for 3 p.m. Local time in St. Petersburg. What do you personally expect of that speech?
Well, I'm looking forward very much to the speech. I hope there will be a boost for market-based approaches, for the importance of providing an enabling environment for long-term investment, a positive vision about the future because the potential is enormous, the human capital is fantastic, the endowment with natural resources is incredible. So I hope there will be a boosting message to the business community to look towards the long-term aspect of being successful. That's my personal wish.